Good evening. It's Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. Welcome to the Town of Carmel Town Board. This is a work session, and we're also going to have a public hearing first. I call this meeting to order, and I ask our town clerk to please do a roll call attendance.
Councilman Baranowski. Here. Councilman Lombardi.
Here.
Councilwoman McDonough.
Yes, here.
Councilman Shannell.
Here.
Supervisor Kazari.
Here. If everybody please rise and face the flag. Councilman Shannell is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take a moment just to think about all our men and women serving in the armed forces, near and far, protecting our freedom. Thank you.
So, public comments, not the public hearing, public comments. If anyone has public comments, they want to get up to the microphone and speak about something other than the master plan or the zoning.
Or the budget.
Or the budget. Thanks.
Good evening, everybody. Charlie Melchner, 722 South Lake Boulevard, Mahopac, New York. I want to talk about an article that was written in the Mahopac News a couple of weeks ago about our planning board consultant, Pat Cleary. I messed up his name last time I was speaking. If none of you had an opportunity to look at that article, I have a couple of copies of it. It's a wonderful article about how a town should work, and we should be thrilled that he's part of our team here to make our town better. He's just done a really, really great job, and I want to thank him. I also want to thank our highway superintendent, Mike Simone. What a great job he's done taking care of our roads, the new blacktop, the lines, the shoulders of the roads. It just makes it so much safer, especially when you get on a couple of days like myself and you can't really see the lines at times and in the evening. It's really a big help to all of us. A couple of months or so ago, this town board said that we could hire, that the Lake Mahopac Park District could hire an attorney to look into some matters. I believe that was done here at the town board. And I believe it was said that it would not cost the town taxpayers any money. Well, in fact, it does cost the town taxpayers money, because Lake Mahopac Park District is a special taxing district for the town of Carmel, town of Mahopac. So those of us that have property on the lake, live across the street from the lake, and then the tertiary area up on top, all pay into a special tax district. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the money that was used to pay for the attorney. If I'm wrong about that, please help me get the proper information.
I think what might have been said is that it's not a town-wide cost, that it's borne by that park district that requested it. So maybe that was maybe where your confusion was. So it's not everybody in town is paying that.
You're exactly right.
Right.
But taxpayers are paying for it.
The taxpayers who
And the
live
very
in that
people-
district.
The taxpayers that are paying for it now, to some degree, we're being chastised with not being able to do as much potentially with our lakefront. And we're paying for the people to essentially curtail some of the things that we choose to do with our lakefront. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for funding the highway department to do the job that they do so well.
So just
Thank you.
to
Thank you.
clarify, Charlie, and please stay there. So that was actually requested by the Lake Park District a year, maybe, where are we, November? Probably about a year and a half ago. And they requested it. They requested an attorney to help them with some reviewing some zoning stuff and things like that. There was also a request that they wanted the attorney to do special prosecutions, which we said no, because we have a town attorney who does the prosecutions for us. So so they asked for it. They are the Lake Committee. They acknowledge they have their committee and the monies that go along with it.
So I recognize all of that, but thank you for explaining to all of us that might not know that.
Sure.
But nevertheless, people that live around the lake are paying part of their taxes into doing that. There's no, that's just kind of the bottom line on it, you know. I was saying something else, and I completely forgot what I was going to say. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So if there's no other public comment, so before we continue to the public hearing on the draft zoning code and comprehensive plan, I'd like to remind the residents that are here in attendance that if you've already you've already spoken at a previous hearing, I want to assure you that your comments and your suggestions, that we're taking them very seriously, and everything that you said has been recorded and will be taken into consideration. We would request that comments be focused tonight upon areas of the comprehensive plan and the zoning code that have not been touched upon yet in the previous public hearings. The public hearings on both the draft zoning code and draft comprehensive plan, that's going to remain open. You can still email and write us throughout into next year. We appreciate that we anticipate that this meeting here, this is going to be our last public hearing on this first draft of the zoning and master plan for this year. Okay, after the planning board gives us their recommendations and a new draft comes out, a revised or an updated draft, then we will publicize that. We will publish that. It will be put out on the website, and then everyone will have an opportunity to comment on that new draft. But this draft, this will be the last public comment on this first draft. So with that,
Well, Mike, I just want to say, just so you guys all know, Bonnie is over here to my left. She's one of the consultants, and she was also, we forwarded all of the comments to her, so she does have them all. So just so everybody knows, so the December meeting date that we've said for that we're going to have another public hearing, the open public hearing, that's not going to be held. All right, so the next one will be sometime, sometime next year.
after the new year.
After the new year, after the town board gets the plan, and then we review it, plus all the comments. All right, but I just wanted to introduce Bonnie over here, okay?
So we're going to have the continued public hearings on the proposed local law, which is proposing multiple amendments to Chapter 156 of the Code of the Town of Carmel entitled Zoning. So can I get a motion to, open the continuing public hearing? So, and a second by McDonough and Channel. All in favor? Aye. All right, so if anyone wants to, that's right, we have a list. Does anybody else want to sign up?
I'll wait till everybody goes.
Because you figured I'd forget. All right, so we have a list here. Mr. Larry Zacks.
Hello, I'm Larry Zacks of Mahopac. Been here a few years. Specifically, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One about the multifamily zoning. I was reading that they're looking at it on 10-acre parcels. There's not a lot of 10-acre parcels to develop. Is that too large a parcel for multifamily development, number one? Should it be reduced to 2-acre, 3-acre, et cetera, with review? The other thing is, I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that.
Do you have a comment on that, Bonnie?
Sorry about that, Larry.
Sure.
And just so everybody knows, I'm Bonnie Franson. I'm a planner. I'm with Nelson Pope and Voorhees, and we were provided the opportunity to prepare the comprehensive plan and the zoning for the town. So this is in draft form, and we're here to get comments on it. The multifamily, I'd have to look specifically at what you're looking at, Larry, because I know that we have zoned areas, for instance, in the hamlets for multifamily, which I do not believe requires 10 acres. What you might be referring to is particular zones that essentially, right now, the town has zoning that's business park, light industrial, and somewhere along the way, there were residential developments that were allowed to be built there. And they each came with their own set of standards as part of the zone petition process, and they're on the books now. So I believe that 10 acres is related to those areas which are already built. And there's different standards for other multifamily, and I can look into that more for you.
Yeah, the only proposal I'd have is that 10 acres may be too large, 5 acres may be more viable, and we're not talking about the hamlets, we're not talking about the denser areas. That's already been addressed in here. And that's the only way downtown will be rehabilitated, is to provide financial incentive by providing appropriate density
Right.
of the mixed use, which we've gone through for 5 years now.
Agree.
And this is a great plan. It really doesn't need that much tweaking and tuning. It's very complex, but very thorough. The one other thing I wanted to state is sewer is a priority. What are we going to do to aggressively get behind increasing our sewer capacity? And then the second question is funding our sewer capacity. What can we do about that?
So we are actively
Meeting with-
negotiating to take over the sewer plant. And we're
How's that
also-
going?
And expand it.
And
And
expand it.
expand it. And we're-
Are they cooperating?
Yeah,
Still in the
it's going well.
process.
It's going well. And as far as there's grants, we keep applying for a multitude of grants for sewer and water for our infrastructure.
And that's going to require letter writing campaigns and pressuring our advocates, correct?
Yeah, well, we reached out to all of them, from Schumer and,
And the public
Our
should do
former-
that also.
yes.
And that's what I'm saying, is the public needs to get behind that. There needs to be more public push to get our sewers, to get our grants.
So the way I understand it is that had we had sidewalks in the master plan when they did 6N, the state would have done the sidewalks for us. And it's the same with the grants on the sewer and water. My understanding is if we have it in our master plan, then we have a better chance of getting these grants. So, we want to get this master plan going, get it done correctly, not rush it, but, we want to have all this infrastructure and our plan that we need to have sewer and water, or how are you going to expand any businesses?
Yeah, Larry, I just wanted to add too, you may have seen in the news, it looks like we have a new congressman. And we are, of course, very excited and very hopeful that he will be a very active and forceful advocate for assisting us when we seek funds for infrastructure projects. And I think you hit on a great point, which is, to this community's credit, we aspire to things, right? But we have to pay for them. And that's always the differential, so.
Is paying for it. And as the supervisor had said, if we have the plans prepared and drawn, we can get the grant money and we're ready to go because we have it planned, and I think they want shovel-ready proposals, don't they? The engineering done. Okay, well, let's hope it gets done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments,
Thanks,
sir.
Larry.
So if I may, I'm just going to add that in the Hamlet mixed-use centers, the minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet. And then the regulations that apply to multifamily in the hamlets is in section 156.13. And that'll give you minimums as far as how many single-family, how many multifamily per acre. Well, I'm looking at a combination of the Schedule of District Regulations in the back, the tables. So that's the HMC Hamlet Mixed Use Center has the minimum lot area. And then, hold on a second, I'll get you to the page. And then the page is, for those other regulations, 103. Hopefully you have the same version I have, which is dated in June 2022. And if you want to shoot me an email, Larry, I can cut and paste that information for you.
Oh, you want me on those? All right. Mr. Nichols?
Hi, David Nicholas, been here forever. Most of what I wanted to talk about was old stuff on the lake, but you said you don't want to hold off on that until next meeting?
Is it the same things that we've already
It's a little bit different.
covered?
But, okay, well anyhow, just as far as what Larry was talking about on the sewer and the sidewalks, I suggest you look at what Bedford did with New York City. As far as the city gave them the plant, they upgraded it, they gave them millions of dollars to run it because the city wanted nothing to do with that sewer. So maybe you want to look into what they did because town of Bedford's pretty smart people on their boards.
And we want to do the water, like you had mentioned previously, and we want to expand the water plant too.
Right, okay, yeah. And also, another thing you guys just were talking about, didn't you get it $300,000 or $400,000 about 8 or 10 years ago to do the sidewalks in a grant to do the sidewalks in 6N? Because I had to give a couple of easements
Neighborhood grant.
on it, and I think you got money to do them, but it was never done. The lighting and the
Yeah,
sidewalks.
that's not the sidewalks I mean around, I'm talking about around
6N where.
6M where they did, remember they did Colonial, they redid, they closed the road in the 90s
Yeah,
and redid 6N?
right.
they-
But there's no sidewalks down there.
If we had it in the master plan, this DOT said they would have been putting them in.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the downtown sidewalks.
No, downtown's, that's,
That never got done.
yeah, that's done.
Okay. And then real quickly, back to the lakefront. I recently finally got a copy of the survey that nobody's seen except for one person that I've run into. And I read it, and as far as the lake goes, there's two questions. I think they're the last two that sort of vaguely touch on the lake. So the only reason I've heard for this, what I would call, really taking away our rights to the water frontage, and I know you're not going to agree with that, but that's the way I see it, is this survey. And this survey has nothing to do with the lake, except for two really vague questions, and I think they're the last two questions. And if anybody wants a copy of this, I have about 50 copies back there, because it would be a lot easier for them to get it than what I went through to get it. And also, then there was a public meeting, apparently, where you could talk about it, and it was on a Thursday at 1:30 at Sycamore Park. So I didn't know anything about it, obviously, but don't most people work at 1:30 on a Thursday? And it allowed 50 people to come, maximum, but I doubt anybody was there because it was 1:30 on a Thursday. Okay.
I wasn't here then, I don't know.
Okay. And then I'll keep everything else till when the next one is. But one other quick thing. I heard a lot about the Lake Advisory Board at the last meeting and how it's not being run right anymore and what a great job Ed Barnett did for the 30 years or something, and how there's no more meetings and there's no more input from the members, and on and on and on. So, I mean, everybody with a lakefront parcel should have some say because they pay for that board and an extra tax on our tax bills on every piece. And nobody's got any say in it whatsoever, even the other board members, apparently. So why doesn't the town board do something about that? And maybe if Ed Barnett did such a good job, put him back in as the head of it. It's a suggestion.
They're open meetings, I think all the residents are allowed to go, right?
But they apparently don't have meetings anymore. They've been canceled by the new president of it.
Right.
That was put in by this board, maybe not when you were here, but
No.
by the town board a few years ago, because I was there that night. Okay, that's what I got to say.
We don't put it in the chair.
Thank you.
Excuse me?
We don't put in the chairs. We don't appoint a chair to it. The committee themselves pick the chair.
Well, I was here when
I'm telling you, I've never.
the town board installed a new president and threw Ed Barnett out. I was here that night.
Okay, that was a long time ago.
It's only like 3 years ago.
That Ed Barnett was the chair?
He was, and he
No,
was.
years ago.
Oh, yeah, for
Right.
like 30 years. And he was kicked out without even knowing it was coming at that board meeting. If you ask him, he'll tell you.
I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, just one thing, when you were talking about what Bedford did to get the sewer, that's kind of exactly what we're doing now, that we've been working on. And to what Larry said, it's still moving forward, which to me is a positive thing. So we are just as smart as Bedford, because we've been doing it. Bedford may have gotten it done quicker than us, but it's pretty much the same philosophy that Bedford is. It's
Yeah.
just taking longer, but it is actively moving forward, which is a good thing. It has not stopped yet.
Okay, because I was involved in that down there, and they gave them the plant, they completely updated the plant, and gave something like $21 million towards putting in the new sewer lines.
Wait till you see what ours is gonna be.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, I hope it's good.
I hope
Yeah.
you say that we're smarter than them when we come up with a better plan.
I want to say that.
I hope you do,
That's fine. But
because I know you
Thank
will.
thank you.
thank you for your comment.
Thanks.
Thank you.
If-
Charlie, you want
if
to
I
go before
may-
Bert?
I'm sorry, I was just going to respond
yeah,
real quick
Bonnie, go ahead.
on a couple points I heard.
Yep.
Number one, yes, the survey had a couple questions. We brought that up at the information meeting. And that survey was put together in collaboration with an advisory group who asked that those comments be added to the survey. 1,000 people took the survey, and Councilwoman McDonough can certainly get into all the avenues that were used to advertise it. In terms of that meeting, that was actually a public information meeting. This was during the height of COVID. We had advertised to set up 2 meeting dates, but because of COVID, frankly, many people did not want to attend, so we had 1 meeting on that Thursday. However, we then had 2 additional public information meetings to solicit public comment that were online and on different days. I believe we had one even on a
We
Saturday.
had one on a Saturday, and then one was in the evening. It was on the webinar that we did.
Right.
What we tried to do is accommodate the people who can come during the day, the people that cannot come during the week but can do a Saturday, and some people that do nighttime. Believe me, we've tried everything, all different hours, all different days. And that's why I know we only picked the one Thursday, but like Bonnie said, we've had them on evenings, we've had them on Saturdays.
Right.
You know, it's if people chose to or wanted to get involved. I mean, during COVID, let me tell you, it was a tough time for everybody. You know, I'm sure this was not on everybody's front burner. But
Right.
thank you for the clarification.
Sure. And then the only other thing I want to bring up is, and I know that the docks in particular has been a particular subject that everybody wants to address. But I want to remind everyone that there is an existing law in place, and that law is in your town regulations. It's your operation of boats, it's in Chapter 55. And right in there, it says that docks are not to be longer than 25 feet. So this isn't that we're suddenly imposing regulations. This already exists. And in fact, the regulations that we're proposing are saying it's 25 feet, but if it's longer than 25 feet, you go to the planning board. So in fact, some of the things that we're doing have provided more flexibility. Plus, we're also trying to create a system that is fair to all the residents so that one resident isn't blocking another person's access. So can it be refined and revised and updated based on your input? It will be. But again, I don't want everybody to think that we're operating in this vacuum and came up with something when in fact you already have regulations and we're trying to make sure that it makes more sense. And lastly, remember that these regulations apply not just to Lake Mahopac, but also to all the other water bodies in the town. So, you know, we have to think about the lake, but we have to think about all the other lakes. So again, you know, I know we'll be addressing that as we go forward. And I thank you for all the comments that we've received to date, but I want to give you that background information.
Thanks. Bert, did you want to have something to say?
Thank you for your time. Bert Melchner, longtime resident. I'm going to repeat a couple things that I said last time because Bonnie is here. Thank you for giving the time, and thank you for answering some of the questions. I want to be a little bit more specific this time when I call out a couple things. I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I wanted to just touch on something that you said. You said that you wanted to maintain that in this draft, it says you really want to maintain the safe and the health conditions of the lake, that the lake is overcrowded. But then you said that you're not concerned about the fishing boats. I think that that needs to be readdressed about the number of fishing boats. We have zebra mussels that have come into the lake in the last couple of years. I think if you did some research, the odds are pretty high that they're coming in fishing boats and live wells. So that is directly trying to minimize a hazard. That's a key point right there. So I don't think we can just blatantly just ignore them. Can I just ask, a floating dock that's an inch off of the shoreline, is that state controlled? But if it's connected to the shoreline, it is under town control? Is that right? Because I read in there, if it's
Right.
if it's over the body of state land, then it's not on this law. But if it's connected, then it is governed by these rules. Is that right?
So I'm hesitating because there's a provision of your law that I think ultimately the attorneys have to address that has to do with to what extent you can regulate, and specifically whether you can regulate within 1,500 feet because you're a greenway community. So that's one of the questions that needs to be resolved, because you may have, in fact, even more ability to regulate than what is in the draft right now, which is kind of the basic provisions based on the fact that the lake is state-controlled and owned.
Yeah, I think
so-
just some clarity on that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, that's something we have to look at. And it's not that we don't want to deal with fishing boats. I think it depends on what, from a zoning perspective, we need to address, because things like mussels and cleaning, and that may be appropriate in this other section of your code, which is dealing with the operation of the boats. We're trying to deal with where they can be located, especially. So,
Okay.
but I've noted that to see where that fits.
Thank you. Is there, you mentioned that there's a couple of docks that are out there that are longer than 25 feet.
Yes.
Is there any plan to look at what's out there today under the current code?
So we actually did go out on a boat, and I have lots of pictures, and I have kind of a full inventory of the varieties of ways that people have docking systems. You know how they have their jet ski.
Yeah.
So we have that
The reason why I
information.
ask is when my neighbors tore down the natural border to the road, the screening, and put in illegal parking, I had to then put up a 6-foot fence to keep my kids from being looked at for the people who stopped at a stoplight. It was brutal. Immediately, I got a zoning violation and I had to pay a fee. So just because somebody drove by, I got a zoning violation. I finally got approval, but it happened. So if we know that these things are happening under the current law, but nothing is being done about them. So I feel like we're kind of putting new laws in place to maintain the health and safety conditions of the lake, but we're not addressing it under the current laws. So just something to consider. There's a couple other things I won't get into, but there's some section G3. It talks about properties have to be more than 25 feet. There's properties that are out there that aren't 25 feet. Permeable structures. There's blacktop right on 6N that people are doing without any permits. Height of boathouse is 10 feet. You can't build a boathouse that you're going to put a boat in that's going to be less than 10 feet. There's a boathouse that was just built. It's a huge boathouse with a second story on it. The zoning rules don't make a difference. They're going to get approved anyway. So this is an important one because there's a lot of lakefronts out there. It says that we cannot have a dock or a pier or whatever it's called. There's a couple of different names that are more than 6 feet wide. That's a dramatic restriction. I mean, some people have a 25-foot piece of property and it's all dock with a couple of piers off of it. I mean, that's just the nature of the property line. They put a dock there, so it's safer and a more usable piece. It's just something to consider. 6 feet wide is very, very limiting. And then
Right, and it's just real quick. So we're trying to establish standards, and then beyond that, you might have to go to the planning board.
Yeah.
And/or beyond that, you might have to get a variance. And
Yeah, no,
we're trying to figure out the right standards.
I get that. So if I have to have 15 feet on one side and 15 feet on the other, this is dash 10, 15 feet plus 15 feet, that's 30, plus another 4-foot dock. Let's just say 4-foot dock. So that's 34 feet is the minimum required width of a piece of property.
For new. Because we have grandfathered
Yeah,
old.
so if I'm grandfathered in, and I'll ask the question now, what does it mean when I go to, my dock falls down? It's, it's failing. I need to rebuild it. Can I just rebuild it because I'm grandfathered? Or do I have to go to zoning and bring it up to code? Like everything else that we do have to do in this town, which I get. But if I have to go in 10 years from now, when I have a property that's grandfathered in, I have a 25-foot piece of property. It has a beach on one side and it has my boat on the other side. Now, 10 years from now, my dock falls down, I need to replace it. Now they're gonna make me move that dock over, potentially, or they might give me a variance, but I'm gonna have to go pay for a permit, I'm gonna have to pay for a survey, I'm gonna have to go to meetings. So now I could potentially, somebody could say no. My fence was put up overnight, a 6-foot fence. I needed a 2-foot variance. The zoning board voted 3-2. I almost didn't get that. My point is, at some point, somebody might say in 10 years, you know what? Move your dock to the middle. Don't put it on the end. And that blows up my whole lakefront. So grandfathering in is not the ultimate thing. We need to be grandfathered in, but the ongoing establishment that we can maintain our properties the way that they're made. I'll try to finish up here. Then we talk about adding screening, protecting the cars from the lake, or the view of cars from the lake. In this existing laws, I can't put a 4-foot fence up in front of my lakefront property because I can't block the view of the lake. Now we have to add screening to block the road from the lake. So we've added new rules to try to make it pretty from the lake, but people that are hopefully watching on the TV right now that are not here, that drive by the jewel of the town, the lake, we are blocking the view of the lake. So maybe that's not the case, but the section 11, if you're looking for it, adding screening, a buffer strip, it's a pretty big impact. So it's just odd that we're trying to change who's going to be able to see the lake and who's not going to be able to see the lake. So section H.1, non-resident of the property. So my property is vacant, which falls into the next section a little bit, but I can't really have a boat there because I don't reside there. It says non-residents of property. I'm not a resident of the property. I do own the property. But if we go to the next session, it says something a little bit different. But what it comes down to is I have a 14-year-old daughter who would like to buy a boat this year, a little boat. But she can't do that because she is not a resident and she's not the property owner. So my daughter cannot put a boat on a piece of property because she's not the owner. So again, I think there needs to be some sort of rewording of that because just me reading it, it can be interpreted very easily as only the people that own the property, that have it in their name, can have anything on there. So it has to be registered to the property owner in section H-5, which I think is critically important. I am the registered property owner. My daughter is not the registered property owner. She cannot put a boat on our lakefront. When she's older, and I'm older, and she wants to put a boat on the property, she cannot do that. So section J-I, we talked about grandfathering in. Again, what happens when the stuff falls down? I think that needs to be discussed. There's one last point. We're changing something that's very drastic. And I'm not sure if you understand the impact of this. And I went around and I looked at all the properties, and I have this map, and you can see it from there. You don't need to look at it in detail, but all the pink are the properties that are going to be impacted. So just for everybody looking, what this is you're changing the way that the docks go out and where they're located. So even the 15-foot property line, if you could look at the $3-4 million houses on the lake, they have boat houses that are on their property line. My dock is on my property line, and my property line goes out on an angle, and my dock goes out on an angle. Now we have to put it perpendicular to the transient line, however you describe it in there. But, so I'm taking my dock, and now where I'm on an angle, now it has to be perpendicular to the line. If that's not the case, because I looked at the wording, and sorry, I'll get you the actual section if you want, but I think it's very important.
No, I'm writing all this, so.
Yeah.
Because I understand. Because many people do have the docks that are actually parallel.
Yeah.
These are the ones we're talking about extending out.
Yeah, it's perpendicular to the tangent line. So I think what that means is that my dock right now goes out on the property line, the tangent line. I think I wrote down the section. I think it's in Section 10. So just to give you an example, my dock goes out along my property line. Now we have to be perpendicular to the property line, not the tangent line that goes across, so if it's curved. What's going to happen is now everybody on the lake is impacted by this. We all have docks that are on our property line, and they follow the property line. If we change that rule, most every lakefront on the property is going to be impacted. So think to my point before about being grandfathered in. If we are grandfathered in until we have to bring it up to code, so my neighbor now, who has a 13-foot wide piece of property, wants to build a dock. He needs to build it on the perpendicular. My dock is on an angle. So does his dock now going to run into mine? And now I have to go and fix mine?
That's not quite what that provision is saying.
And please, if we can make sure that that is clear,
Yeah.
because I've talked to a number of people about perpendicular to that line and how that's worded, and that's the way that it's coming across. So
Yeah.
I just want to be
Yeah.
explicitly
That has
clear
more to
on
do
that
with
one.
the setback, so. The other thing I wanted to
Perfect.
mention was just in terms of the buffer. This is only regulating things that are within 50 feet of the shoreline. So beyond the shoreline, it's not regulating.
It's
So
50
as far as the
feet.
screening.
So my property, I have to screen from the road.
50 feet in.
Yeah.
And it's only you have to screen, and in particular, there've been things like porta-sands, you know.
But
it's
that's
screening
called out
for-
specifically.
It's screening for particular elements.
Yeah.
To ensure that you're still
Yeah,
having
but
some
we're
buffers.
going to be closing off the lake. I completely agree. If there's a porta potty, I didn't mention that, I'm sorry. I love that. Porta potty should be covered, because you see them all running down up and down the street, and it just doesn't look great. Look, I just want you to, thank you for listening,
Mm-hmm.
and thank you for making your comments. I want you to understand the impact of this. It is a huge impact, and that's
But-
why I think you see people here.
And I appreciate some of the examples that you're providing, because as I said, some of the things that you may be talking about are already limited by this other chapter, 55. So when you talked about
Great point.
operation and licensing, et cetera, you know, there's kind of two things at play here.
Yeah, and that's a great point. There's existing rules. So I think we're going way overboard on these new rules to try to put something in place where we already have existing rules that aren't being met. So I don't know if there's going to be a new way. Is there going to be, do we have to self-police? Is there going to be somebody that's going to patrol? Is it going to be the honor system where we're going to have to narc each other out? I don't know what it is, but it's going to be, like, if it's just going to be a new set of rules, no one's going to do anything about it anyway. So I know that we're trying to make the lake safer. All of these things, it sounds like we're trying to make the lake private. It's just the way that it's coming across. Talked to a lot of people, a lot of feedback. It feels like we're trying to make it private. And I don't think the people that are paying for the lake, which is not just the people that own lakefront, but everybody, wants it private. I shared my experience last time. Somebody almost ran me and my daughter over on the jet ski, and she said, "You guys don't belong here. You don't live on the lake." I own property on the lake. I live up the hill from the lake. I've been on the lake since I was a kid, so when I was a baby. So I belong there. So I don't want anybody to think that this is a private lake.
Yeah,
So-
and there are marinas which are allowed by the zoning, so obviously
agree.
it's not
Totally agree. Big
going to
fan.
be private.
Big fan. I was at my friend's house today. He has a boat at the lake, at a marina. It gives them the opportunity. Fantastic. Love it.
But I think.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Bert.
Thanks.
appreciate
and
it.
I was going to say, and that's a great point, because part of the point is control, because there are places where things should be launched and where they should come from, as opposed to sort of unrestricted all over the lake situations where people may be in fact operating practically a mini marina. So, but thank you for those comments.
Speaking of marinas, Charles? Oh, Tommy wants to go. Oh.
Hi, Tom Simone, I've been here, lifelong member, on the lake since I was a kid, all right? We have a lot going on here at a very short period of time. We're making a lot of sweeping changes here, and I think by now, this is like my 5th meeting. I've talked to a lot of people. I've had a number of people call me because they obviously saw me here. We have got, I've already made it clear to the town board, Nelson Pope, okay, was not here. There are many aspects of this draft do not apply to Lake Mahopac. 25 feet. You say, oh, it's been in the code, it's been there, it's pre-existing. That's great. It had to start somewhere. So whoever put this 25-foot dock number, you can't apply that to every property. It's not a cookie cutter. It's not a one-size-fits-all number. My dock is 65 feet long. My neighbor's dock is the same length as mine. The other two docks to the left of me are the same thing. In 65 feet, I have approximately 4 feet of water. At 25 feet, maybe this much, maybe, okay? Now, there are other properties on Westlake and Eastlake. They don't really have that problem. I understand that. That's not a problem, okay? Now you're trying to establish an entirely new program, all new rules, ordinances, et cetera, to properties that have been there since the 60s. Nobody's been complaining. Not one complaint. Not one. You have a survey you did of 1,000 people, 3/4 of the people said the lake's overcrowded. Since I heard that number, a red flag went up. I said, something's not right there. I called people on East Lake. I know a lot of people around the lake. East Lake, North Lake, West Lake. I'm on South Lake, okay? I talked to 2 associations. Nobody knows nothing about a survey. Nobody took a survey that they knew of, okay? These are the people that are paying the freight, okay? I understand that we have to make some, we have 0 safety issues. Nobody's complaining about any safety. I talked to the fire department. They have no issues on the lake. I talked to the police department. No big deal. The year after year after year, the safety hasn't been a problem and security hasn't been a problem. I do agree that the town should have jurisdiction over everything on the land. If somebody wants to put a shed up, they want to put a boat up, or they want to put any kind of structure up, they should come to the town. That's what we have ordinances for. I understand that. But now you're trying to implement a package, okay, into an existing community for over 100 years, and you're saying, well, you can go get a variance. You'll have to go to the planning board. You're going to have to do this. You can do that, but it's not going to change anything because none of the properties will adapt to the codes anyway. So how are they going to pass it? How are they going to give you a variance when you don't meet the set, or give you a permit when you don't meet any of the guidelines? It's not going to happen. If it would have started from the beginning, that would have been totally different. I understand that. But as this is put up now, you say the planning board is going to do a revision of this, I guess?
Yes.
I can't even imagine where they're going to start. It's littered with so many complicated issues, and it's so legal that it just doesn't fall into the lifestyle that this community has adapted to. It just hasn't happened. And now we're trying to make all these changes.
Right. And I think you know what's sticking in my mind is your 65-foot comment, because I think that's the perfect example. Now, I can't speak to what was enforced in the past or what's been done in the past. You know, we came in, there are letters or other things that people have expressed concerns about the overcrowding. But specifically with the docks, like I said, that chapter talks about docks not being longer than 25 feet. And so the point of going to the planning board is, hey, you know, I need 65 feet because I can't get a boat in, you know, if I want to, if I'm restricted at 25 feet. Right now, frankly, if you don't meet that requirement of Chapter 55, I don't think there's any avenue for, technically, for someone to be longer. Now,
That's
I'm not
exactly
saying,
my point.
I'm not saying that all of these haven't already been constructed. I understand that, but you know, we're also talking about forward movement, because the plan and the zoning is about the next 10 to 20 years.
Right.
And so that's why there's grandfathering as well, because you have to recognize that a lot of people have constructed, you know, docks already. But
Okay.
again, I love when people give me actual examples of what they have, because I think it really helps the process.
Yeah, you know, if it's the word pre-existing non-conforming exists for a reason, okay? There are a lot of properties that are going to be pre-existing, but they're not going to conform. And it's not going to happen just because we passed this. It's just not going to happen. Now, on every page of this draft, and I think I have, town board's probably read it as well. Okay, it's been going on for quite a while. On every page, sometime more than once, here it comes, watercraft. What a great word, watercraft.
Yeah,
It could be a kayak,
Tommy,
it could be
yeah,
almost anything.
Tommy,
Limited to 2.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you off, but that has already been discussed over and over and over, and I can promise you that's going to be changed. Bonnie
Okay.
knows about it.
Yeah, it wasn't
so-
including, it's not
Yeah.
including
have
kayaks and
so
things that
many-
can come out of the lake.
Yeah, we
of that
have
nature.
so many people in the town of Mahopac.
Right.
They don't own lake property.
Right,
Right.
that
Okay.
definition is
Yeah.
going to be
And
changed.
it's going to impact them negatively and a lot more than property owners,
Yeah,
you know?
Understood.
So let's kind of take a more sensible approach to this, okay? And I hope the town board, listen, they got an earful of everything, okay? But nobody wants to stop on this because nobody wants to see this whole thing just come down on us. And now we have to conform to something that we can't conform to, okay? We just want to, if we had a lot of problems, I get the whole package. I honestly do. We have no problems, okay? And it's only a few. It's a very small group of people that started this, okay? We all know. This is my 3rd time going through this. This is number 3 for me, okay? And it's the same people. I understand everybody's concern, okay? But trust me,
yeah, no, I was
I'm
going to.
absolutely sure of what I'm saying.
No, I'm just trying to understand, when you say
Yeah.
this is the 3rd time, do you mean the
So-
3rd
so-
time here or just other times?
Oh, we've been going through, oh, God.
You're talking
This-
years.
This is pretty old for us, but it
Okay.
never went to this point.
Okay,
It never got to this point, that I should say.
Yeah.
Okay? But I just want the town board to walk very carefully on this, okay? This is very important to the people in the community, not just, and anybody who thinks that people who are renting out boat slips are making money has no idea what they're talking about. That is far from the case. Some people have said, some people are renting out boat slips just to make a profit. There's no profit. Okay, I'm paying taxes on a piece of property. I have friends that are living in the Carolinas that own homes that are paying less money than I'm paying on my grass, okay, in front of my dock, in 50 feet of dock space. There's no profit, there's no money being made here, and I want the people in the community to understand that, okay? But what about the people, the families that are that get an opportunity to get on the lake, that have spent tens of thousands of dollars for boats, okay, and get their family to go out on the lake for an afternoon? What about them? This takes them right off the lake. That's what this is doing. It takes all of them off the lake. You're not a property owner, you don't own lake property, you're done. You're not getting on Lake Mahopac.
so.
Tommy, that's not what that says.
Okay.
That-
Well,
not
that's
what
what's
it
in
says.
the draft
Yeah.
I'm holding.
Yeah, that's not what it says. But,
Okay.
and just,
But I'm going to proceed,
if you
let somebody
can-
else speak.
Yeah, and just so people know, you know, I've heard it over and over and over from some people coming up here. I personally have heard from a lot of people that the lake is overcrowded. I take everybody's comments. They don't want to come here and say, just like some people don't want to come here and say, you know, I have a 35-foot thing, because they're afraid or whatever, they just don't want to be in the public. But I can assure you that there are just as many people that come here and say that the lake is not crowded that say the lake is, okay? And it's going to be a happy medium. Listen, I grew up on the lake too. We want everybody to be able to use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, and this by no means is telling people, hey, if you don't own a piece of property, because then it goes back to Bert's thing, it's a private lake. No way, no. Absolutely not right. So let's go on
Okay.
to the next person.
Okay.
Okay? So
Okay,
so
thank
we
you.
can get other comments. Thanks, Tommy.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm John Cambajanis. I live at 578 Beach Road in Mahopac. I'm here representing the Mahopac Woods Lake Association. This is my first public board meeting, so if I ask a question, I apologize if it might have been asked a question previously.
It's okay.
I only have a couple questions. I've heard a lot of answers with a lot of the things. I went to an informational meeting that was a couple weeks ago, and that was very helpful. We have a community on the north side of the lake, right? It's 80 homes. We have about 20 boat slips. Years ago, we got a permit for our current docking system that we use out there. How will this comprehensive plan affect an existing permit that we have?
So I don't know what your existing permit is, but essentially this does talk about HOAs and where you propose a waterfront structure that you would go to the planning board for site plan approval. And part of that is because of the fact that because you're an HOA, it's going to involve multiple individuals as part of that HOA that may want to have watercraft. And so this is a situation where you would go in and you would establish what's reasonable for your property, given the fact it's an HOA. You would go to the planning board. So that's in there.
Excellent. All right. Another question about the grandfathering process. How will that work?
So there's a grandfathering section, and it talks about pre-existing structures. And essentially it's saying if it's pre-existing, it continues to exist, but you can't further expand it.
Will there be I'm sorry to interrupt you, will there be a process outlined on how to go about?
Well, if you're pre-existing and you meet the standards, then there's no process. If you're pre-existing and you don't meet it and then you want to do something different, then you might have to go either to the planning board or the zoning board of appeals, depending on what you want to do. But again, all of these are subject to change. We're taking in all the comments, and we're going to talk to the town board about how to grandfather items and what to regulate.
And how would someone know that they're grandfathered? Is there a process for it to make sure?
Grandfathering is just a term that just basically it's the same term as pre-existing. You already exist. And so if you don't fit within the zoning regulations, you're called non-conforming. And the only way you're going to know is if you look at the regulations to determine whether you fit them.
Understood. How would someone know that they are grandfathered? Docks usually come in and out, right?
Right, sometimes, yeah.
So how would you know it was there previously?
Well, so if it's there and it's fitting these parameters about length, et cetera, then that's how you would know.
I know for a fact ours is longer than the 25 feet, which is probably why we got the permit years ago when the 25 feet came out.
Yeah, you know, there's some places where they have processes where if you, let's say after the law is passed, you can come in for a period of 6 months after, and you actually establish your non-conformity. So it's almost like you establish what's pre-existing. So you come in, you say I have a 60-foot dock, and that's kind of your baseline. That's something we can talk about. That would be done, I guess, through the building department. But again, I think it's a little premature to talk about it because this whole thing is in draft form and subject to change. No, but I think it's a good comment because that's another comment.
I'm the president of the homeowners association.
Yeah.
I have members asking me questions and I don't know the answers.
Sure.
So I apologize.
Yep. No, don't.
So just one more question. I know you said comments from this is the last public meeting this year, right? So you're going to rewrite the draft and put that out?
Yes.
Right.
There'll be another public hearing sometime early next year, right?
There'll definitely be,
Yeah, there'll be
Yes. Multiple
multiple,
public hearings.
not just one, there'll be a continuation.
Is there any estimate on the timeline of when we're going to finalize or vote on that final draft?
Sometime
or-
next year.
Sometime next year, all right.
Yeah, so there's these comments, but there are also other comments.
Understood. No, I
And-
appreciate the info. I'm just.
Yep. Yeah, so we will meet with the town board. They will collectively decide how they want to handle, various items, how they want it changed, whether it's map changes or regulatory changes. We will then make those revisions. It'll go back and just general cleanup, if general cleanup's needed, and it will go back out to the public for you to have an opportunity to comment on it.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
No, thank you.
So John, just real quick with the floating docks, like what Bonnie was alluding to, when they're out there, maybe take a picture of it, and then that would be considered grandfathering. Is that what
Yeah,
you
we
were
have
alluding
pictures
to?
from Google
Because-
Maps. I mean.
Yeah, you got Google Maps. Yeah,
Google
just
Maps
use
is
that.
good too.
Yeah, and that would establish what you guys had there, so next year when you go to put them in, I'm not talking about next year, I'm talking about like in the future.
Yeah, we can even
You
look at the
say, "No,
history
no,
on
no, we
Google Maps
have
and see
them,
it
we
hasn't
have
really
them."
changed. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And if
Google
it
Maps
comes-
is
yeah.
oftentimes how you can, see what someone had and how things have
Yeah.
changed.
all right. I appreciate your time,
Yep.
and thank you.
No, thank you. So patient.
Hi, everybody. Charlie Melchner. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your time. I'll make this quick. Everybody did a lot of great questions and asking. I know that from the last meeting we were at, one of the big concerns we're trying to solve here is overcrowding of the lake, is what I've been told. And that came from a survey that was done that not everybody has seen or heard about, and that I believe whatever the numbers were, 75% of the people answered, which was like 680 people got to this question and said overcrowding. I would love to see that. I think Dave has a copy of it, so maybe I could take a look at it with that to see what the question actually was. I think I recall seeing the survey when I was doing something with it, was one of it. But we don't know where were the people from and who were doing it and what were they basing their opinion of it on, was one of the things I wanted to point out with it. I'd also like to know that the last time we talked about why we were doing it, we talked about overcrowding again. And again, I'm just looking for the reason why we're starting to do this. And if we're talking about overcrowding on the lake and regulating how many boats are on the lake, and I know that's not how you want to say it, you want to regulate how many boats are on a dock at the lakefront of the residents across the lake, it does ultimately affect how many boats are on the lake, and that's what we were told we're trying to affect, overcrowding on the lake. We said we've gathered information from other lakes and other places that have done this. I'd love to see an example of an existing situation that had an overcrowding where they went ahead and they implemented these very regulations, and now it has solved that issue. I fail to see how the change of the width of a dock or the direction of a dock will go ahead and change the issue of overcrowding that we're saying we have. That was one of my main parts, because I believe we're not going after the root of the problem for what it is. Has anyone asked OGS to take a look at what's going on and regulate their lake and check into it and see? Because I know there was some discussion about rules, enforcement, and regulation on it. And I'm not looking for answers now. I had emailed everybody on, I think, September 15th or 16th with a lot of this. I put a new email together I'll get out to everybody so that I can hopefully get some answers like that, so I don't take everyone's time tonight. And feel free, if anybody does have answers and wants to give them, that's great. Have you asked OGS or the state about regulating how many boats can be on their lake? Have we talked about that with them at all? I don't know if you have. And have we actually looked pre and post COVID, like what actually was going on the lake before COVID? Was there any issues we were trying to address? Did it change like every lake and water body and public space that could be out in? We saw a large increase of people and stuff being around. Did we actually go ahead and look what's happening before, during, and are we on a decline now? Is it still up? Is that what's going on? I don't know, but these are some of my questions. I certainly know that you could walk across the street in Mahopac on South Lake Boulevard and Route 6N like when I was 5 years old and I could cross the street during COVID. But I didn't see them take away parking spaces or regulate or say we could have more cars or do something different at that point because of that. I think we're taking that same reaction. We're looking at people being on the lake and enjoying something they could do, and now those of us that are around the lake are being punished by saying you're going to be limited on what you can or cannot do. And that's really my time, my questions. I wanted to thank everybody who's reached out to me and talked to me, especially everybody from the board. Susie, for your comments. And Susie, I know you had called me, thank you, to ask me about what I thought was appropriate for the number of boats on a lakefront piece of property. You and Bonnie had given me a call after the last meeting, and I appreciate that. But whilst I appreciate that, I wanted to make sure, you know, I'm not an expert on lakefront zoning or how it works. That's not my job. I do have some sensibility about what happens with it, but I would suggest and tend to think that a town that hires a company and spends the money we are spending to have Bonnie here and her company working on this situation would have some kind of a lakefront or recreational space specialist that would know those general ideas, so that way we could give some kind of a calculation or information to the people so they could kind of look at it as well. I do appreciate you asking me, though, because I think it's important that everybody gets asked. But anyone who's reached out or came by or saw me or taken a look, thank you. Bonnie, thanks for going for a ride around the lake and looking. I think it gives you a little clue into what Bert was talking about, what Tommy was talking about, how much diversity we have out there and why we need a lot of things to be different. And that's it. If you guys have nothing for me, those are my questions. I'll get my email out to you and look for answers.
Great.
Thank you for
Good.
coming out.
Charlie.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
No, we good.
I have one more thing. I'm sorry. One more thing. And this isn't even big. We have a tremendous amount of influence from what I'm hearing from our Lake Mahopac Park District Association and the Friends of Lake Mahopac. They give input to the board, and the town obviously must condone what they say or do because it's on their website. It's a direct link to their websites for their boards of directors and the people that are there. And at all the meetings I've been to, we have had no representation by the current board of any of those things, and we don't know who they are. And if they're representing us, the people of the lake, and they're not having anything for us to do, I would ask that maybe the town board, our liaisons or someone, could ask for some accountability from them to maybe come to a public hearing and let us know who they are, who they're representing, and how we could find that out, because it seems hard and difficult to get that information. And I think it's important, you as town board members, to know who those people are, who they're representing, and who they're speaking for, and not that they're just telling you and we don't actually know. And that was it. I forgot that. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Buckley?
Hey. Hello, Town Board. My name is Robert Buckley, 30-year resident in the town here. I currently live on the lake. I lived here for 24 years. I did not live on the lake. Lived off the lake. I only dreamed of living on the lake. And about 4 years ago, I rented a spot in one of the marinas. We got a pontoon boat, and my God, the lake is beautiful. It's a treasure. I hear everybody speak here, and I've been watching the meetings week after week, the comprehensive plan. I'm really having a hard time. When I watch it, it's like all over the place. It's like there's like no real 1, 2, 3 issues. It's just like we threw everything in the air and we said, let's talk about it. I don't know where you're going to end up with a plan with this. But the one thing I do want to say is, when we have traffic issues in town, and you want to put up a red light, a stop sign, what you do is you hire traffic professionals. They do traffic studies. Have we done a traffic study of boats on the lake? Because I can tell you, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there is no traffic on the lake. On Saturday, there's no traffic early in the morning. Saturday afternoon, for 5 hours, got a little bit of traffic. A lot more traffic, I should say. Sunday, you have a little bit more traffic. Holidays, you have a little bit more traffic. But I bet if you did a traffic study throughout the whole summer and you came up with a report, you'd say for 10 to 12 days, we got major traffic problems on the lake, if you want to call it, too many boats on the lake. Does that mean you have to go and now completely change the rules and regulations of the lake for maybe, we'll call it June, July, and August? So we'll call 4 or 5 weeks. We're talking about 12 to 15 weekends, because nobody here can tell me, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there's too much traffic on the lake. That's a guaranteed no. Saturday, you can go out early in the morning in your kayak. I see it. I sit in the backyard. It's beautiful. The lake is a treasure. I got to tell you, I really think before you start going crazy and enacting these new rules and hurting these people on the lake. I'm not here all the time. I got a place down south. I'm back and forth, but my permanent residence is in Mahopac. I live right on the lake here, and I'm going to tell you, this is a beautiful town. But I think, I heard Tommy speak, I heard Charlie speak, I heard everybody speak. You got to really listen to what they're saying. You're just taking this out of nowhere, going back to the 40s and 50s. Things are going on, and today we're going to institute new rules, and nobody's 100% sure that if somebody's got a 65-foot dock, and for some reason that thing starts falling apart, and they got to redo it, Are they going to be able to do it? What does the grandfather really mean in that case? Oh, I'm sorry, you got to go before the planning board. Oh, but you're only allowed 25 feet. The 65 feet you had before was okay in 1940. I'm sorry that your doc died. You're in trouble. Or if it's in the wrong angle, you're going to screw a lot of people. Now, I'm going to say something you might not like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You were elected by the people in this town. When I watch this comprehensive plan being discussed, especially about the lake, I see one person leading the charge. No disrespect to you, ma'am, but I see Bonnie running the charge. It's as if she's running the town when it comes to this comprehensive plan. It doesn't seem like this town board got a grasp of what's going on. Basically, we're being led by Bonnie that's telling you, who doesn't live in our town, what she might have did in town A, B, C, and D. That may not apply here. I hate to say it. It falls on the 5 of yous. You need to either take it and dump it and start it over and put it in your lap. You're the supervisor and the town board members, and I do not think we should have an outside consultant basically running the show here, and if it goes bad in 5 years, they say, well, this is what Bonnie said. Well, Bonnie wasn't elected by the people in this town, and you really need to think about that, because at the end of the day, when Bonnie's gone and you have to vote on it, people are going to be saying, Susie, you chaired it, you're in charge, you're going to eat it. Supervisor, this is on you. You allowed this to happen. You cannot allow this to get so out of control where Bonnie is dictating, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but it's just the way it is, where Bonnie's dictating policies for the lake that's gone back to the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and now they want to recreate the zoning, the docks, the marinas. It's absolutely crazy. I respect all of this, and I'm asking you to, you should be the lead on this. You should be dealing with it. You should be answering the question. Bonnie should not be here, the so-called expert on this, telling everybody you guys should know about it, learn it, understand it, talk to the planning board, and you should be taking the lead on this, not Bonnie. I think it's really doing a disservice, with all due respect, to the residents of this town. And I respect all of you. I'm saying that respectfully to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
So Bob, I am going to respectfully disagree with your last statement. Yeah, come up. Because we do, and I know I'm broken my golden rule of talking.
We're going to have a back and forth now.
But Bonnie is not dictating it. Just like any other consultant that we hire for the town, we invite them to come to the meetings for questions that you guys answer, okay? This was not Bonnie's, and Bonnie, you can correct, this was not Bonnie's master
I don't
plan.
want you to ask Bonnie. I want you,
This was-
with all due
I'm-
respect, you
listen,
can address me
this-
without
I'm answering you, Bob.
asking
Bob,
Bonnie to answer the
Bob,
question for you.
Bob,
I'd like you to answer it.
Bob,
You chair this committee.
Bob,
I'd like you to answer
This
it.
is not Bonnie's plan. This is a plan that was
Is it,
put together.
well, you're the chairperson. Is it your plan?
I'm not going to talk over you.
Well,
so,
you-
all
I
right,
wanna know
you
who-
can sit down, Bob.
All right, you brought up a point. I got to answer it. I'm not going to address that.
No more arguing.
But Pat
Let's-
Cleary,
we're not-
Pat Cleary, one second, I'm not going to talk about, I'm going to make one more comment. When you go to the planning board, with all due respect, Pat Cleary is the consultant there. He's hired by the town. I never see him take the lead. I see the planning board takes the lead, and when they have a question that they can't answer, they go to his expertise and he explains. But the planning board addresses the issue and they take the lead because they're the lead people as you appointed them. And all I'm saying is that you should be taking the lead here and not Bonnie. That's all I'm saying, respectfully.
Thank you for your
And I
comment.
believe that's why this has gone back to the planning board, so that they could review our draft plan of the master plan, come back with their comments, listen to the comments that the public has given us, and come up with something that's sensible, and something that's going to be a good product going forward. This is
I
the window right
agree
here.
with you.
I
Thank
mean,
you,
it-
Mr. Chanel. But when you
this is
look
going
at it on
back and forth, and
TV,
it's just common sense should prevail here. This is just a draft plan. Everyone has their comments. Everyone has their concerns. There's a lot of vocabulary here that has never been defined. There's terms that are not defined, watercraft. I hear a lot of different things, things that are grandfathered, docks that need to be repaired. I can't see if you need to do a repair on something on your house, you repair it. It stays the way it is. If something's broken down and not working, that's another story. But that's got to go in front of the planning board and the zoning board to see what their process is going to be going forward. We haven't gotten there first, and there's a lot of maybe misnomers or people are just coming to their own conclusions. They're asking questions and they're answering their own questions, and the answer is we're not saying anything because we want to hear from the public. This is a public.
So I want to be clear, I don't own a property on the lake, I rent a property on the lake, but I do feel for the lake owners when I talk to them, because I feel their pain, whether it's the dock, the fence, the commode, the shed, we got to understand, it's a scary, 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 an opportunity that's in front of them right now, and they're very nervous, and I don't blame them. And then you got the marinas. What's going to happen to our marinas? We love the marinas. They've been here forever. You know, that's how you get on the lake if you don't own a boat. You go there, they get you out, you get your boat out, you enjoy the lake. I mean, we got to make sure we're taking care of
I
everybody.
don't think it's anybody's intent and purpose to take away anything from anyone. This is just, the intent of this master plan, as far as I see it, is to make it a better community, to make it a better lake, to get some kind of conformity, some type of maybe regulations going forward, so that it doesn't become like a sloppy mess, that you just can't go and build things and put things where you want. I mean, that's.
We were asked
that's
by the planning board and zoning board to make the zoning regulations to have some teeth, because everything was gray. And when people come up, they want to have things not as gray. That's what this huge thing is about. It's not just about the lake, it is about the entire community. It is in draft. I'm sorry that you feel the way that you do, but I believe that we're doing the right thing. We hired a wonderful consultant. We're getting input from all the community members who want to give input, either on TV or not on TV, and then we're going to go back and do the due process.
So
we're going to make another draft. We'll have the input again. Ultimately, the town board will make the decision after we hear from everybody.
And it should be known that I used to be the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee in this town for 6 years, and I served on that committee for 10 years. And I dealt with, we had our meetings once a month. We dealt with every recreation issue in this town. We put kayak programs on the lake. We dealt with a lot of issues on the lake. Not once, and we had public meetings annually, not once was there any issues that came to that recreation committee where anybody said anything about the lake being overcrowded? Not once. Nobody came to that committee and ever complained about, they just wanted more access. But nobody ever came to us and said, man, this lake is out of control. You guys got to do something about it. Now, the recreation committee don't control the lake, but we have input because we used to represent the town board here. We'd come to you guys when we heard from the community. Not once in 10 years did anybody say one word about that lake being overcrowded. Just so you know, in fairness, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you for tolerance of all the information coming forward. Bonnie, you said that the planning board would potentially look at X amount of slips that would be going on the lake. I don't believe that to be an accurate statement. I think you need to go to the Office of General Services, okay, and find out about that to make sure that you're right and give them advice.
That was part of the, I think someone else had raised that at some point, if something's floating over the water, and it's over state waters, the town may have more limited ability to regulate something. Having said that, there's also another provision in your code where your greenway community ties into some element of the navigation law that may allow actually for the town to have more authority, but that's something that the town attorney and others have to weigh in on because it's a legal matter.
Okay, so I think the Greenway law only applies to navigable waters. Lake Mahopac is not a navigable water. Overcrowding of boats on the lake. So I've had the opportunity to be kneeling on a dock putting gas in cans for 55 years. And I will say this, a survey was done last year that there are 750 boats on the lake. I have a copy of a statement from about 45 years ago that there were about 750 boats on the lake. The difference now is the gas cans were 4 and 5 gallon gas cans that we're pumping in. Now the gas cans are 20 gallons or 30 gallons in boats. The overcrowding is because the boats are so much bigger. All right? We have 25-foot pontoon boats, 20-foot pontoon boats with big umbrellas up on top. Susie, where you have your boat with your friends, it's beautiful, all the bimini tops, it looks beautiful. Is that overcrowding? I'm not really sure how we can put that all together. After changing, we're very fortunate to have a planning board in this town, especially with the lake, with Craig Praper and Bob, on that, both live on the lake. So when you're making changes to all of this, Are you going to go back to them and give them enough time to review all the changes, to come up with intelligent answers to it? Because you know who's going to be held accountable for this? Not you guys, because you get reelected. These people live here. They are going to be held accountable if a stupid law is passed or a not thoughtful law is passed. I know one of our assemblymen, Frank, I think, you came down to Mahopac Marina last week and you walked around and looked at things. Thank you for doing that. No. Bob, excuse me.
I've been there many times, but it wasn't last week.
Okay. Well, that's
I
good.
stepped down.
Yeah, Susie, you're out on the lake all the time also, and I just think it's really good. So we need to consider that, overcrowding or size of the boat. You know, I think we need to look at that. I believe that McDonald Marine and Mahopac Marine don't take big boats anymore. There used to be one or two 30-footers out on the lake. That doesn't happen on our watch any longer, which is a really good thing. You know, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something regarding the docks?
Okay.
We're talking about doing a perpendicular docks on a oval or elliptical. It's not going to work. The other really big problem is, for years, the docks were built to conform to the depth of the water, where neighbors had docks. There were a lot of variables. Now, these docks exist for a certain reason, and neighbors kind of work together. If we put these laws into effect, everyone's going to suddenly need to get a variance. Letters are going to go out to the neighborhood, and now you're going to have neighbors fighting. Instead of having this be a smooth process, I just see this as every property is going to need a variance, every property is going to need a building permit, and we have pre-existing docks that have worked. What do we really want to bite off on the lake? I don't want to see a war. I want to see the neighbors get along. The properties are unique. One dock at 6 feet, another dock to get to 6 feet, you got to go 120 feet. So what are you going to do? How are you going to write this in a code? You're not. It's going to take a long time, and I don't even think it should be in the master plan. This is a different issue.
Thank you. Thank you. So if anyone else has a comment about the zoning part, if not, we're going to move to the public hearing on the draft comprehensive plan being proposed, right?
We want to make a motion.
To close that one first?
Are we going to close it?
Not
We'll
close
leave it
it,
open.
whatever the verbiage we used last
To leave it open,
last
so.
time.
to-
Adjourn
to-
it.
To close the
Comment section.
public comment in-house, but we're leaving it open to emails and written correspondence. Does anybody want to second that?
Second.
Seconded by Shano and McDonough. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, so a motion to open the public hearing on the draft comprehensive plan being proposed in the town of Carmel.
I think everyone thinks they're one and the same,
Is it?
so I think they overlapped. Same.
So if no one has a comment on that? Oh, you have a comment on the master plan? Oh, all right. So since no one has any comments, we will make a motion to close that in-person portion of the public hearing and leave it open for emails and written correspondence. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Take a moment.
Now, so should we make a, we'll have to read this first, or we make a motion to do it?
The clerk is going to have to read.
Okay, so next is public hearing in regard to the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2023, including the general town fund, highway funds, water district, sewer district, park district, fire district, garbage district, fire protection districts, and lighting districts.
Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of Carmel will conduct a public hearing on the 9th day of November 2022 at Town Hall, 60 McAlpin Avenue, Mahopac, New York, at 7:00 p.m. or as soon thereafter that evening as possible in regard to the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2023, including the general town fund, highway funds, as well as all water districts, sewer districts, park districts, fire protection districts, garbage district, and lighting districts. And be it further resolved that pursuant to Section 108 of the town law, the proposed salaries of the following officials for fiscal year 2023 are hereby specified as follows. Supervisor, $132,388.10. Town council members each, $22,276.80. Town clerk, $110,008.36. And highway superintendent, $141,914.10. And be it further noticed that the preliminary budget for the town of Carmel has been completed and filed in the office of the town clerk, Town Hall, 60 McAlpin Avenue, Mahopac, New York, where it is available for public inspection during office hours. At said public hearing, any resident may be heard in favor of or against the preliminary budget as compiled, or for or against any item or items contained therein. The town board will make every effort to assure that the public hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. Anyone requiring special assistance and/or reasonable accommodations should contact the town clerk. By order of the town board of the town of Carmel, Ann Spofford, town clerk.
Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Seconded by Shannon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So before we open to public comments, I just want to point out, as far as the salaries go, the town supervisor and the town board members did not take raises in this budget, just as a matter of fact. So if anyone would like to come up to the microphone, public comments on any of these items in the budget, the districts and whatnot? No?
There being no comments, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Shannon and McDonough. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I get a motion to open the town board work session?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And you good? Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, Annie.
So our work session, we have 8 items. The first one is from Mike Carnazza, Building and Codes Enforcer. Consider request to authorize return of permit fee at 94 Barrett Hill Road, Carmel. Tax map number 53.17-1-29. It's for $355. The building inspector memo states, please be advised the contractor for the owner of property was issued a permit for a master bath addition on September 2nd and paid $355 by check. It turns out he lives in Kent, both jurisdictions having a 94 Barrett Hill Road. He asked that we please return the $355 to Ben Francis DePria of 94 Barrett Hill Road, Lake Carmel, New York, 10541. I don't see that we even need to discuss that. We'll definitely do a resolution on that. Next, Mary Ann, thank you for sitting through all that. So next up is Mary Ann Maxwell, Town Comptroller. Consider request to amend the adopted 2023 user fee schedule.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, this is what is first here? Oh, the user fee schedule. Okay. So each year, I reach out to the department heads and ask them for their requests for the user fees for 2023. So I did that earlier last month, and I received, the only departments that I received requests from were from the Recreation Department and the Engineering Department. So I will go over the changes. If anybody has any other questions on existing fees, those remain the same from adopted last year to proposed of this year. So on page 3, the recommended changes are in the Recreation Department. So they have requested that the playground camp, grades 2 through 8, be increased $50 from $550 to $600 for residents, and non-residents $1,200, which was $1,100. Primary camp K through 1 was $600, and that's an increase of $50 to $650. Non-resident $1,300, and the fee last year was $1,200. On the bottom of page 3, there's some recommended changes to the farmers market for vendor space. $250 for a half season, and that's a 12-week time frame, and then $500 for a full season, and that is for, I guess, a vendor, if a vendor wants to come and rent that space. So the full season is 24 weeks. They are going to do away with the 20 by 10 foot vendor space that has been requested to be removed. The $20 concession, I guess a concession vendor, it's $20 for each time a concession vendor would request. And then $350 for a full season. That's a 12 weeks max. And again, the 20 by 10 craft vendor space has been requested to be removed. So if you have any other questions, I suggest reaching out to the Recreation Department, because that's who these requests came from. Okay? Yeah, I mean.
One of them doesn't, okay.
So, I got these directly from Nancy and Jim.
I think one of them may need to be changed, but, okay.
Do you want, you'll reach out to him, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll talk to you right after this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll come to you.
Okay, perfect. And then there were no other changes in the Buildings and Codes Department, no requested changes. On page 7, there was some changes with the Engineering Department. Copies of plain maps, black and white and color, I guess $10 will be for black and white, and $15 for color. The Bannett permit fee, non-waivable, has been removed, requested to be removed. Out-of-district application fee for residential and commercial has been requested to go an increase from $3,500 to $4,000 for residential and $4,500 to $5,000 for commercial. And that's for sewer districts. And then down below, also for water districts, the same increase from $3,500 to $4,000 for residential, $4,500 to $5,000 for commercial. Water meter replaced due to customer damage. In the previous user fee, it was at replacement cost. It's been requested to a change of $500 for a 3/4 meter replacement, 3/4 inch meter replacement cost, and then 15% for all other size, 15% increase for all other size meters. The other change, as you know, we're very close to finishing this meter change out with the radio read meters. So we're requesting that, this has been in the user fee schedule, but we haven't really implemented it. But there is some resistance to residents, not conforming and not changing out their meter. So in this user fee schedule, we have a fee of $300 for residential, $500 for commercial, and that would be billed semi-annually. So if a resident decides not to change their meter out, we have the authority to bill them for the $300 for residential and $500 for commercial.
Because they've taken away the automation.
I'm sorry? What?
Because they've taken away the automation and made it a manual, somebody has to do the work now.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. And
Yes.
this has been a mandatory meter replacement, so, there is some resistance. We're getting close to, completion, but.
Yes.
So I think, like I said, this has been in the user fee schedule, but we haven't implemented it. But I think in '23 is a good time to start. You know,
Right.
I think the first time we bill would be April of '23. So that could be the first time that we you know, and I don't mind, you know, if somebody says, oh, I didn't realize that, okay, get a new meter, and then I'll reverse the fee.
Yes.
You know, I mean, if it's basically, you know, in order for them to conform.
Right,
So,
yes.
okay?
Thanks.
Correct, of course, yes, and we, you know, we've been making phone calls, we have, you know, national meter here, you know, it's between the engineering department and the controller's office, we've been sending letters, making phone calls, you know, we're not just gonna, I want to say, you know how many hold, with the 200? 200? Yeah, about 200, out of 35. Yeah, about 3,700. 3,700 meter, you know, residents that have meters, so. We're getting there. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay. Next item I have
Is
here.
Consider request to authorize renewal of Agent Penplex Actuarially Services LLC for Service Award Program 2022-2023 Carmel Fire Protection Districts 1 and 2, which would be the Falls and Mahopac.
It falls in Mahopac, yes. Yeah, so Penflex is the company that we use to administer our LoSAP program, which is our length of service award program with our volunteer firefighters. So this is a service fee agreement that we have the board look at every year. There is a slight increase from 22 to 23. Last year for Fire Protection District number 1 was $7,200, now it's $7,600. And for Fire Protection District number 2 was $8,200, now it's $8,500. So it's a slight increase, but it's still within the budget, the proposed budget for 2023. So they handle, you know, they work with our auditors, you know, so Penflex has been very good to work with, so.
Anybody have
Okay.
questions on that? Nope. All right, so our fourth item is consider request to authorize 2022 delinquent water sewer re-levy on 2023 town-county taxes.
So these are delinquent water and sewer amounts that, for residents that haven't paid. Now, these are amounts that have not been paid prior to July 31st of this year. So we're not looking to levy anything current. We just sent out bills, but this is, these are residents that did not pay their November of last year's bill or their April bill of this year. So the amount is $206,000, and this is a draft. I printed this I think it was last Friday. I'll run it again next week and give the board another update. And then what happens is it goes to the county. The town is made whole with whatever is with the delinquent water and sewer. So, okay. The out of district there's probably, I would say 6 or 7 properties with the out of district that hasn't paid. So, but again, we'll run it again next week and send the board a copy. And then I work with the county and I work with the receiver of taxes to make sure that what we're putting on the taxes is doesn't get paid. Sometimes they'll send in a check and then we'll have to send the check back because it will be on their taxes in January.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thanks, Mary Ann.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. I have to say the amounts, this amount has gone down. This used to be, I would say, close to 300,000, so I think that is good.
Oh, that is much better.
Yeah. So hopefully we can get it under 200,000 by next week. That'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Pretty close.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the fifth item is with Richard Franzetti, PE Town Engineer. Consider request to authorize change order number 3, contract C268, town-wide water tank rehabilitation and installation, Carmel Water Districts 2, 3, 8, and 14. Rich?
Thank you and good evening. Contract 268, the townwide water tank rehab and installation for those water districts 2, 3, 8, and 14 was awarded to Arrow Construction in September of 2021. Work under the contract is pretty much currently underway. The reason for the change order that is going on is number one, which is a no cost, but ultimately there's going to be cost on the next two. But due to supply chain issues, in particular steel shortages, we recommend that the date for substantial completion be changed to June of 2023. The delay was not caused by the subcontractor. So what's going on is we're waiting for variable speed drives and pumps that are going to be installed in Water District 8. And so those probably will not be here until early December or late December, because every time they get an update, it's always pushed back. They're not going to do this work, the work that they need to do for the tanks in the winter, which are the two tanks, the Crest Road tank up the road here and the Kings Ridge tank. They're not going to be able to do the work in the winter, so they're going to push this off to the spring, do the electrical work, components, and do everything that they need to do to upgrade those tanks per the contract. In Carmel Water District 3, tank filling at Secor Road required a modified approach to prevent backflow and maintain service to all users due to unforeseen circumstances related to the system constraints. The modified approach resulted in additional tank rental time for a cost of $10,772.73. Just so the board is aware, when the system was set up, that we have one tank in Carmel Water District 3. The tank is directly fed through two separate water treatment areas. One is over on 295 North Road, and the other is right on Spring Street. Those waters are treated there, and then they're pumped through the system. They feed houses initially, and then they fill up the tank, and then the tank pressurizes and feeds throughout the system. When the tank was being worked on, it was completely drained. In order to maintain pressure throughout the system, we had hydropneumatic tanks at the yard over near the wastewater treatment facility. Because we had the issues with the tank when we were filling it, when you clean the tank and fill it, it's heavily chlorinated. What was happening is that the system, this tank, for some reason, the way the system is set up, it was backflowing back into the system, so we had to isolate it completely, which we don't have to do for any of the other tanks. Because of that, we needed to do a retrofit on how to fill the tank without having it backflow into the system with high chlorine, and therefore, the Arrold had to have the extra tanks there, for a longer period of time to maintain pressure throughout the system. So that is the reason why they did that at Water District 3. In Water District 14, existing conditions, a town-owned utility pole, the electrical service was rerouted to the nearest NYSEG pole. The change resulted in additional length of underground electrical services. Rerouting this service allows the town to abandon and demolish the old utility pole. The new proposed service eliminates the need for the town to own and obtain a new electrical pole, and the cost is $10,978.93. The reason why that happened is we were going to put a new pole in there, but because we are on, in essence, Putnam County property with every 99-year lease that we have with them, we had to get an easement and or a letter signed before NYSEG would actually install a pole there. Due to time constraints on that, we wanted to get this work done to have this electrical work completed, which I think once we approve this change order, they'll go and do the work. We were going to have a pole. Now we're not going to have a pole, but we paid NYSEG for a pole. I forget the amount, $3,000 and change. That will be, you know, so that $10,000 is already going to be credited, the $3,000 and change that we've paid NYSEG, which will get back as a credit from NYSEG. So there are sufficient funds in the capital budget for these expenses. Weston and Sampson, who's the engineer who helped design this, they provide additional detail in the back of the in the report. We recommend that the board authorize this change order as attached, and the proposed contract completion date would then be on or before June 2023.
No questions on that? So next up is consider request to authorize purchase of generator from our friends at Carmel Volunteer Fire Department. Rich?
So as part of its site improvements and building addition, the Carmel Fire Department is upgrading their current standby generator that currently serves the location. They offered to sell the existing unit to the town of Carmel. It is a Cummins 50 kilowatt with approximately 800 runtime hours. We requested that our generator service contractor, MagPro, perform an evaluation and to determine condition of the unit and suitability for use at any one of our facilities. They indicated that the unit is in good condition and that it could be used as backup and would be a suitable and would indeed be a suitable location for Carmel Sewer District 7, where the existing unit is approaching the end of its serviceability. The offer price from the Carmel Fire Department is $7,000. It'll cost about $1,500 to disconnect and relocate to MagPro, which it will be serviced and have a load bank test applied. At that point, a decision will be made on where it will finally lay or its final disposition. We recommend that the unit be purchased for $7,000. The purchase will have to be made out of the general fund in the event the unit is located to a district. The purchase cost and moving costs would then be applied to that district at that time and then reimbursed the general fund. As the purchase is less than $20,000, it does not need to comply with competitive bidding prices, and as such, the board can properly characterize this unit as a sole source and therefore authorize the purchase without any additional quotes. That's for a procurement discussion.
Perfect. Anybody?
Nope.
Thank you. So we're good, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Next up, number 7 is consider acceptance of proposal for snow removal services at Swan Cove.
There was an attached proposal to the memo that I provided. We're solicited from contractors for their maintenance contract of snow removal at Swan Cove. The complete list, vendor list was also included. Proposals were received from 4 contractors. Lake Mahopac Landscape, Mike Bluewiz, and Legacy were deemed to have proposals that were responsive. One contractor, Seasons Edge, did submit a proposal, but it was deemed unresponsive because it was based on the superseded specification, and such the addendum was not acknowledged. The proposal did provide for snow plowing at a cost of $10,000. However, Lake Mahopac Landscaping was the lowest. We contacted references for them, and all the references contacted provided positive feedback. The cost for 2022 and 2023, $15,600, 23-24, $16,400, and 24 and 25, $17,300. That's if we go that far in 3 years. Based on the above, we recommend the contract be awarded to Lake Mahopac Landscaping for the year of 2023 for $15,000. It says $15,000, it's $15,600. The board would then have the unilateral option to engage the contractor for following years.
Great, thanks.
Quick question. How many square feet is that they'll be plowing? How big is the?
It's Swan Cove parking lot, the bank parking lot next to Swan Cove.
Just the bank parking lot? No-
And the sidewalks.
And the sidewalks?
Yeah,
And
I don't know
nowhere
the square footage on it,
Out
whatever
past
that
that
is.
where the cars currently park now for the farmer's market, that's not included in this? It's just the bank parking lot, basically?
Correct. Yeah, not the, that is Chamber Park, not the Chamber Park parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
And this is good, because we're family business, and they've been in town forever. This is good, along with,
So that
Some
ultimately
of the other
could
ones.
change if that parking lot goes into play or gets bigger over the next few years, right? If we expand on that?
yes.
If we should expand on that, on Swan Cove?
If the
Yeah.
parking lot becomes bigger, he's saying
Well, it
more to
would be
plow.
the same price, yeah. That I know of. I mean, we gave them an area, we drew, it wasn't included on the attachment, I apologize, that's what I was just looking for. I'd have to double check, it might include the Chamber Park, because we do call Swan Cove and Chamber Park specs. Yeah, it's the whole bank parking lot, wherever there's asphalt over there, they're going to be doing the clearing, plus the sidewalks in front over there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's on the picture that was included.
Was it
the
with
bid.
Chamber? Yeah, so it would
Yeah.
include Chamber then, I
Yeah, the
apologize.
whole thing, yeah. And then our last item on this work session is consider request to acknowledge emergency repair services for Carmel Water District Number 8.
So this memo is presented to the board to advise you of emergency invoices that were submitted in payment of excess of $10,000. On October 17, 2022, B&J, the operators of Carmel Water District 8, reported that the ceiling-mounted heating unit has failed at the water treatment plant. Attached is an invoice from Suco Fuel in the amount of $14,489 for the repair of said unit. That's all it is. It failed and it needed to be repaired. And just so you know, we have a failed heating unit at the sand filter building in Carmel Sewer District 2 that we will be bringing to the board for consideration. They said it was a 1 million BTU, but it's about 700,000 BTU unit to heat that. It's now not functioning. We're getting quotes for it and we're moving forward. So just so you know, that has to be done also.
That's $80,000 to $90,000 if it's the same as the 1 million unit that these guys just fixed.
Yeah, we have one quote that came in at about 56 or 60 something, but still, we're going to get the 3 quotes and we'll go with it from there. I'll let the board know.
In the future, at that plant, at the one we're talking about, there's no catwalk to work up on that. You know, they had to build the scaffold.
Right.
Can we get prices on looking at that? I know that it's expensive, but if they were to drop something and it hits that unit below it, it's going to cost us.
I got you. I'd have to see if we can get quotes for it. I don't know if there's sufficient room for it, but we'll certainly check it out.
It's cramped in there. Questions about the heating unit? No. Yes, Fred?
Rich, just have to ask you something about the invoice.
Sure.
No, I'll do it offline. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Anybody doing this?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
All right, so our announcements in observance of Veterans Day, Friday, November 11th. All Town of Carmel offices, including Recreation, Justice Court, and Highway, will be closed. There are 2 memorial services for Veterans Day in town. First at the VFW Post 5491 Mahopac. Their ceremony is, of course, on Friday on Veterans Day, 11/11. The parade is at 10:30. They go from the VFW on East Lake, and they march down to the War Memorial there at the corner of East Lake and Mount Hope Road. And the ceremony will be at 11 o'clock. There is refreshments afterwards at the VFW East Lake Boulevard, Mahopac. And then up in Carmel Hamlet, VFW Post 1374, Carmel. Their Veterans Day service is also on the 11th at 11 at Memorial Hall, and that's 32 Glenida Avenue, Carmel, opposite Lake Glenida. The public is invited to the ceremony, and the VFW building will be open for food and beverage afterwards. That's all my comments.
I just have a couple announcements. After a couple of years of not being in existence due to COVID, the Holiday in the Park at Chamber Park in Mahopac will restart again on November 27th. It's being sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce and the Holiday in the Park Committee. It's Sunday, November 27th. It's a tree lighting and menorah lighting. Santa Claus arrives at 5. Don't forget to bring your phone to take pictures with your children with Santa, and there will be entertainment at 4:30, including singers and dancers, and also a few vendors will be in the park as well. And following Saturday is the Holiday on the Lake in the Hamlet of Carmel, all day long, different events that day as well. That's a wonderful event as well, so hopefully everybody can make it out to these 2 events.
You're good? Councilwoman, do you have any comments?
No, thank you.
All right, so we're going to be making a motion in a second to go to executive session where we're going to close out from there.
So
We
moved.
have Police Chief Anthony Hoffman, a personnel issue, and we have more budget discussions with the town board for the 2023 budget personnel. So can I get a motion to go to executive session? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.